It's Dream Ride's final installment of the NSRA Street Rod Nationals, but where's the fire? Everyone is rushing over to Freedom Hall to see the presentation of the awards in the Circle of Champions, the weekend's prime event, so grab a seat. Welcome to Dustless Blasting presents Dream Rides. For our last episode covering the NSRA Street Rod Nationals, we wrap things up with the top picks and award winners of the show.
Sunday afternoon is a Circle of Winners, and it's hard to imagine you can take 10, 11,000 cars and take them down to 47, put them in Freedom Hall, and do the award ceremony. But we do it, done it every year, and it really is a unique thing to go down and see not only pros picks, but you see the safety and rep picks as well. And long distance, a lot of different things go into that.
Going through our coverage in chronological order, let's start with the 1930s.
1931 Chrysler Imperial. It's a formal sedan. Very few of them made. There's only 6 known left, and 5 of them don't want to talk to me anymore on this one because they're purists. I can't take credit for doing it. I bought the car pretty well done. It was kind of a sad story. The fellow that did originally build the car was out of Ohio, and he died in a snowmobile accident. His name was Ridez. Did a fantastic job on him. Then his widow kept it for 12 years in the garage, couldn't sell it. Finally decided it was time to go. I bought it in an auction, 90% down. Yeah, the roof has been chopped 3 inches. Originally, they all had side fender mount spare tires, and he apparently didn't like the looks of that as well, so he had those taken out and filled in, and I think that makes it look long. My first question that people ask me, how much was it stretched? The length of it is original. It was a long car to start with, 145-inch wheelbase, which is about as long as they made them back then. There were very few of them sold because they were $3,500 in 1931. You could buy a pretty nice sedan for $1,000 or $800 in 31, but this was a rare model. The interior is pretty much the original style. It's all new, of course, 14 or 15 years ago, but it's the original cushions and the way it was made in 31. It's powered by a late model Viper V10, 500 horsepower, with a 6-speed standard transmission. This has a Dana Williams drags the rear end in it. It's air conditioned, all the modern amenities. It goes down the road really nice. The long wheelbase makes it ride excellent. It's not safe to drive too much on the superhighways because people are always gawking at it and they turn their wheels towards you, you know. Everybody thinks it's a gangster car. Al Capone's.
We built this car for a guy named Dr. Dave Floyd. It's a 1934 two-door sedan. You know, you kind of look at old magazines and you kind of modern and update stuff that they did back in the 60s. Dave wanted something that was along those lines, so that's what we did. He kind of had an inspiration because he grew up back in those days. Top's been chopped a little bit. Got a Y-block Ford, started life as a 292. It's been bored a little bit. Now it's 302 cubic inches. C5 transmission, 5-speed, 9-inch Ford, ET wheels. Just a old school 60s inspired hot rod. What we wanted to do was make it look like you just grabbed the car and you didn't really want to mess with it too much, so you stuck a Y-block in it. Well, instead of recessing the whole engine back, you just cut it out for the magneto and made the pocket. Same thing with the trans tunnel. All that's made out of aluminum. You know, the top being chopped a little bit, that's a little unique because we only took 3/4 out of the back glass and then 3/4 out below the back glass to try to keep all the proportions correct. The wheels are made by ET and they're called the Sebring. They are a true knockoff. They're safety wired on, just kind of a 60s hot rod thing. They're not really going to come off. It's more of an aesthetic than anything. Dave wanted a spare tire in the back, and so we kind of wrapped our head around how we're going to do that, you know? And so it just kind of led to its own little thing where we put the spare tire in the back, and then we took an old 6-volt battery out of a Thunderbird and had it sent off and converted into 12-volt. And then we found the little toolbox that had a Thunderbird on it, so it's kind of got a little Thunderbird thing going on with it. He actually haven't drove it yet. He don't have insurance on it yet, so I hadn't drove it. But he's rode with me in it several times, and man, he just lit up like a candle the first time that I launched it in first gear, so he's very excited.
As Jim mentioned, there's a long distance award, this year going to someone who drove in from Nova Scotia, Canada.
1933 Ford Coupe, a small block Chev and an automatic. I got 1,775 miles from my driveway to the Louisville. Love a ride. Not a Cadillac, but I didn't want a Cadillac. It's a home-built car. It started life in my shop in my backyard. I'm not a professional builder. I just build it as a hobby. Started with a bare frame. It's a fiberglass body. Assembled it myself over the space of 3 winters. We've been driving it about 5 years. The mechanical part's always the easy part for me. The frame and suspension, the driveline, that brakes, all that sort of business. I really enjoy that. The bodywork part, trying to make it pretty, is the hardest part for me. And the interior part, I've got a good friend not far from home that does interior work. He helped me with it, thankfully, because I'm not sure I could do that all. We took 4 days. We came straight down through Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, crossed through to Pennsylvania, across the top of West Virginia, and 64 across to Louisville. We tend to stay away from the interstate whenever possible. We like 2-lane road because there's real people and real things, and it's just a relaxing ride. There's lots of reasons to slow down, and we do it. It's a drive, that's what it's about. Yeah, definitely. Don't believe in the trailer stuff at all.
More of the NSRA Street Rod Nationals when Dustless Blasting presents Dream Rides returns. Dustless Blasting presents Dream Rides is being brought to you by Steel Rubber Products, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. Clamp Tight, the clamp making tool. Custom Auto Sound, the originator of classic car OEM fit radio since 1977. And by Dustless Blasting, it's the future of surface preparation. Back at Freedom Hall, as our trip through time continues, the next decade would be the 1940s. With production limited by World War II, a few notable models did get out.
I have a 1940 Ford Woody wagon. In 1940, it cost just about as much to do a wooden car as it did to do a steel car. And then around 1949, things changed and steel was getting cheaper than wood. But you gotta remember, these vehicles were used basically for just moving people around. They were the station wagons of the day, so they were very plain. First of all, this never really started as a car. It was built as a hot rod. So I started with the cow section of a 1940 Woody, and from there started rounding up some of the sheet metal parts, the front end, the rear fenders, fabricated all the floor and subrail area. And then I had a friend that's a cabinet maker, had never done a Woody before, and I convinced him to help me do this project. And so the result you see there of all that wood was basically made one piece at a time. We had a little outside help doing the molding because of the special cuts, but every piece was fabricated in his little shop. That was a 6-year project. The engine is a modular Ford 4.6 4cam engine, and I've kind of disguised it a little bit to look like an earlier engine, but it does fool a lot of people, and that was really my purpose. But it's a very modern all aluminum V8, fuel injected, and everything works just like it did when it was in the original vehicle. Air conditioning, cruise control, everything runs through the original computer. In the back of the vehicle is actually a picnic table, and the picnic table folds out. It's the same wood as the vehicle, and that's what the cushions are for. They actually are the pads that go onto the picnic table benches. It collapses down into a suitcase size that very neatly fits in the back of the vehicle. Drives like a late model car. You know, it's a modern vehicle. It has power steering, brakes, cruise control, air conditioning, 4-wheel discs, coilover shocks front and rear. So goes down the road at 75 miles an hour just like a late model does.
Well, it's a 1942 Studebaker Champion Coupe. We've been told that it came off the assembly line 10 days after Pearl Harbor, and through Studebaker Museum in South Bend, Indiana, we're trying to verify that. They can provide a build sheet for the car, and we've got that on order. We've had the car about 12 years. When we got it, it was basically an empty shell. All the fenders, hood, and everything had been shoved inside the car and then put outdoors for about 8 to 10 years. Just sat out and cats living in it. It was kind of a mess. Front fenders were in such good shape, but we didn't do much to those. And probably rear fenders were the hardest part because they were so rusted and they couldn't find any new ones or any better ones. So there was a lot of patching going on back there. The floor, the rest of the car was pretty darn solid. It was actually a 54,000 mile car. Well, it was a solid car. The full intent was to be a street rod up the whole way ever since we bought it. There was no intentions to return it to original, no. It's got air, cruise, tilt, power windows, power seat, power steering, power brakes, all the good stuff. It was a 10-year build, obviously, it's worth the work. Wouldn't do it otherwise. It's a fresh car, and this is its first major outing. It's got about 1,500 miles on it right now, but we will drive it. One of the biggest reasons, too, that we decided on this car is it's so unique, and then there aren't any of them around. We were told early on that if we took this to a show, we would be the only one there.
Time now to learn about Dustless Blasting's tools and opportunities with Brian Loans.
Over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about how dustless blasting is great for automotive and the automotive world, but the reality is there's a whole lot more out there to do than just cars. I mean, we're talking light industrial, some residential work. Give me some examples of what we can talk about that's outside of the automotive realm.
Sure. Well, everything in the world is painted and dirty. And so that's what creates this endless amount of opportunity. From simple applications like sealer removal, graffiti removal, boat bottom cleaning, just simple everyday items like lawn furniture. Be great to be able to blast it, recoat it, and get some more years out of it.
The marine example you bring up is perfect. As someone who spends some time on the water, it is a great thing to know that you can have an opportunity to get that thing out of the water in the wintertime, do what you have to do maintenance-wise, and get the boat set up for next year without having to get the putty knife out. It's terrible.
Well, you know, everybody's struggle is preparing for paint. And everybody knows the quality of the paint job is all about the surface preparation. And so the better that you can prepare the surface, the better the quality that you're going to have down the road.
That is fantastic. Where do I send people to learn more about dustless blasting?
Sure, they'll want to head over to dustlessblasting.com where they can literally see hours of contractor submitted videos, training information, and of course machine configurations.
That's really cool. All the information you could possibly want about opportunities and the different uses for the machines as well. And I know those contractors are out there busting their humps across the country, and the results show. We've seen the videos on the website. They're fantastic.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be back next week for Dustless Blasting again with more information and more opportunity to find out how you can make dustless blasting a part of your future.
More of the NSRA Street Rod Nationals when Dustless Blasting presents Dream Rides returns. Welcome back to Dustless Blasting presents Dream Rides. Next on our tour of time is the rockin' 1950s, with the focus on the middle of the decade, 1955.
It's a 1955 Ford Crown Victoria. I bought the car in 2001. It was on a ranch up in the mountains in Colorado, and it had been used as a ranch vehicle. A lot of dents, a lot of hauling posts around, things like that, but no rust in it at all. So my dad and I started the project, and it took us about 9 years to complete it. It came out real good. We did a lot of customization on it. Frenched the taillights and customized the louvers in the hood. The interior is all completely custom. It's got a 1960 T-Bird dash in it. Kind of used a T-Bird theme on the interior on it. And then it's running a 390, the 65 T-Bird with a C6 transmission. So from the front to the back, everything's Ford in there. Paint, it's got 2012 Ford electric blue. It was on the Mustangs, and I think Taurus had it also. I'm finding parts for the chrome and the stainless, so coming up with that. But that's part of what I loved about the car. When I was 10 years old, I saw one that had all that chrome on the inside and outside, and I just fell in love with it. One of the things that I didn't like about a 55 Crown was they had great big park lights. So we decided we wanted to do something a little custom with the grill, some of the Strout stainless, and we had the top and bottom custom bent and built. And then we used little 4-inch turn signal park lights that are used for the T-Bird dash instead of the great big 8-inch ones that were stock on it. So we did do a little modern touch to the taillights. They're one-off vacuum molded taillights that my dad had made. And then we added some LEDs to pinstripe or outline the taillights. And then also the center console inside has a blue light, so it looks like it's actually floating above the floor. She's a driver. We've got 8,000 miles on her in about 3 years. We drove her out from Colorado out here to Louisville, Kentucky. So
Headed back tomorrow.
Make is a 1955 Pontiac Safari. Pontiac's version of the Nomad, and there's probably about a third of many of these made as there were Nomads. The thing was pretty much all there. The glass had been broken out of it, and the guy used it for drag racing. He went bankrupt, and the bank had repossessed it, and I found it in the back of an old lumber yard. We probably gathered parts for 3 years before we ever started putting anything together. Mainly the stainless is what's hard to find on the chrome. And after that, we just started putting it together. You know, tore it all the way down, took it off the frame. I still got the original motor that it come with, and we put in a 350 home build. It's got actually 383. In the transmission, we put a 700 R4 in it, and it's still got the stock Pontiac rear engine. The paint, they call it electric blue and the Dodge silver. It's something we'd seen on a PT Cruiser one day. We thought that really looked nice. So then it was great for about 5 years, and then we caught on fire. We were coming home from a show in Springfield, Missouri, going down the interstate about 10 miles from home, and asked the wife, I said, "Do you smell gas?" And she said, "Yeah," and I looked at the hood, and it started boiling. And we got out, had a fire extinguisher with us. We got what we thought was out. We took the bra off and opened the hood up. As soon as it got air, it just took off again. And the ironic part about it is a guy come running across the interstate with a couple bottles of water and a gallon of milk, and he put it out with a gallon of milk. The motor was okay, but the fire extinguisher has all that powder that comes, and it gets everywhere. And everything from the windshield forward had to be sanded all the way down again and take all the stainless off. And so it was probably another 8 months before we got it back on the road. It's a good cruiser. The wife says it rides better than a family car does.
The years is 1955 Chevrolet Bel Air two-door hardtop. The history was I bought a motor and didn't know what car I was going to put it into. I think a Chevrolet would be kind of interesting, mainly because the motor I had was a 472 cubic inch Mopar Hemi, and I thought, well, that will kind of set people off a little bit. I thought I really kind of wanted a Bel Air two-door hardtop instead of a post, so I asked Dave Cahill, which is an NSRA rep. He goes, yeah, there's a young couple out of Stockton, Sacramento area. Ended up buying it, got it back to Fresno, and just started kind of planning on what I was going to do, and the only way I could make that motor fit in this car was to use an Art Morrison chassis. So then I could kind of fit the motor and then try to get the firewall set back to get everything to fit in there right. I really kind of like stick shift, so I ended up putting a Tremec TKO 600 5-speed behind it, which was quite a job. And the whole time I'm doing this, my wife is still not sure about the car. She says, it's not a hot rod. But by the time I got it finished, I got it painted and fabricated everything for it. And we have a friend in Fresno that does some upholstery work, and the upholstery in it is absolutely incredible, the stuff he did. And she really kind of liked the trunk, and she liked the ride. And it was a little bit different than the 32 Fords. She's happy with it now. I actually built the car in 1 year. I finished it probably about 3 years ago. I've got like 7 cars, and actually this is my favorite.
More of the NSRA Street Rod Nationals when Dustless Blasting presents Dream Rides returns. Dustless Blasting presents Dream Rides is being brought to you by Steel Rubber Products, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. B&M Racing and Performance, quality performance products that work. Evapo Rust, super safe rust remover. And by Dustless Blasting, it's the future of surface preparation. Next on our automotive timetable is the decade of the 1960s, when factory feuds over performance produced the muscle car and even more audacious modifications.
68 Mustang that we built for Ike Taylor, who just retired from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I will tell you, I was surprised at how much involvement he wanted to have throughout. I mean, from the rendering to the wheel choice to the power plant to the color. So yeah, he was involved certainly with all the major decisions. It's got a roadster shop chassis. What you're looking at is ride height. That's 130 miles an hour right there. There's no air ride, no adjustment at all. So we essentially cut everything in between the rocker panels and from the rear body panel to the cowl out of the car, reinforced the inner rockers, set the body down on the new roadster shop chassis, and then started building new floors. So it gave us an opportunity to make sure there was plenty of room in there for wheels and tires and exhaust and all the important stuff. It's a brand new 5.0 Coyote crate motor with a D1 Pro Charger on it. It's got a paddle shifted 4L80 GM tranny, one-off custom-made New Tech wheels, a Willwood disc brakes, got a complete hand-fabricated MagnaFlow exhaust system. The interior was done by a local guy, Cobra Racing seats. The dash is handmade, the center console is handmade, all the floors are handmade. The rocker panels are extended, that's all handmade steel. All the scoops on the car are custom-built steel scoops, rear wing as well. All the rear body panels have been modified and changed, bumpers are tucked. And I'm really, really proud of the guys. They were really excited to get this project underway because just about everything we've done up until now has been more of a street rod type of a build, and they were really anxious to do something a little more current.
'69 Dodge Charger. We bought it out of Northeast Indiana 5 years ago, and it was really pretty rotten. I've been working on it at home for 4.5 years. Put it on the rotisserie and replaced the bottom. The floor was all gone, the trunk was gone, rear frame rails were gone, the quarter panels had to be replaced. The doors and hood were pretty good. We bought a wrecked Chrysler 300 SRT8 and used all we could out of it to make this car go. My wife did make it go sideways one time, and she hesitated on driving. We had a '69 Dodge Charger in the military in '72. Gasoline went from 35 to 50 cents a gallon. We couldn't afford to keep the car. I got a Mustang 2 style front suspension from Riley Motorsports, and their street length rear suspension, 18-inch front wheels and 20-inch rear wheels, tires. We use Brembo brakes, and being in the machine shop my whole life, I made adapters to mount those brakes to this suspension. Used the radiator, condenser, transmission, all the computers. Took quite a few computers. Chrysler's not real friendly about using their parts. Chevrolet is willing to help you. Chrysler really don't want you using their stuff. Young man did the interior out of Dewey, Oklahoma. Fast Al's upholstery, custom mix on the paint. We had a 2012 Dodge Challenger, and it was called Red Line Red. It was a tri-coat, and I've never painted a tri-coat, so I went to the paint store and said, how close can you come? And this is what we got. And our son and grandson had bought us a die cast, 1969 Dodge Charger, and it had to be red with an orange stripe. So guess what? We got a red car with an orange stripe. We've got 400 miles on it. So this is our first long trip. We put it on a trailer here. After this trip, we'll be driving.
As we say goodbye to the NSRA Street Rod Nationals in Louisville, Kentucky, Dream Rides heads to North Carolina for the annual Steel Rubber Products Open House.